Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this today. Whether you're currently commuting to a downtown office or, let's be real, working in your sweatpants right from the couch, we are stepping into the shoes of an investigator today. We're going to explore a really carefully curated gallery of recent, groundbreaking research to map out exactly how the modern workplace is drastically changing right beneath our feet. We've synthesized a phenomenal lineup of studies for this, and we're going to break down the key takeaways author by author to truly understand the future of work.
Okay, let's dive into this. How is remote work fundamentally rewriting the rules of employment? This isn't just some hypothetical thought experiment. It's literally the central puzzle of our modern economy. I want you to keep this question in the back of your mind as our main hook today, because every single piece of research we review is going to hand us a unique piece of this exact puzzle. Here's the structured path we'll be taking on our tour. We'll start by examining remote work corporate loyalty, then uncover the co-presence illusion before navigating graduate career realities. From there, we'll look at redefining the psychological contract, and finally, we'll explore the fascinating digital nomad economy. Part 1. Remote work corporate loyalty. To kick things off, we're looking at a super compelling piece of research published by Oakwood and Draham Capital. Their contribution really zeroes in on a rather alarming trend for organizations, which is how remote work culture is actively killing traditional corporate loyalty. Their core chain of thought is really fascinating. They observed that the very flexibility making remote work so appealing is actually fundamentally shifting the psychological baseline of the worker. So on one side, you have your traditional mindset that's anchored in collective goals, team wins, and long-term commitment. But on the flip side, the remote mindset is highly individualistic. Employees are now prioritizing personal convenience, optimal working conditions, and an independent career focus over those traditional collective organizational objectives. So what's actually eroding this loyalty? Well, the authors summarize it down to a few key factors. First, limited physical presence means a total lack of shared space, which severely limits those spontaneous water cooler conversations and networking that build real camaraderie. Plus, there's that increased focus on individual goals we just talked about. And crucially, we're seeing much higher turnover rates, simply because remote workers now have global job access. Think about it. If you can work from your living room for a company just down the street, you can just as easily work for a company halfway across the globe. Geography is no longer a barrier to jumping ship.
Moving on to Part 2, the co-presence illusion.
This brings us to a crucial red thread in our investigation. If physical absence is what's killing loyalty, does simply forcing people to show up to the office fix it? Well, our second source challenges some massive assumptions about hybrid work. Researchers Niels Breede-Moe, Jarlie Moss-Hildrum, and their team at Syntef and Telenor took a brilliant approach here. To understand true hybrid work rhythms, they realized you can't just rely on self-reported surveys. Let's be honest, people exaggerate their office attendance. So instead, they measured the absolute truth by tracking the actual office access cards of 17 agile telecommunications teams. Now, what's really interesting about this finding is the strict definitional difference they discovered. Attendance is simply the average office presence, literally just how many days someone swiped their badge at the door. But co-presence is the proportion of workdays with an overlapping presence among team members. It is the vast, and I mean vast, difference between just being in the building and actually being there together. The author's conclusion completely shatters the blind mandate to just return to the office. As Moe and his colleagues clearly state, high average office presence in the team does not necessarily imply that team members meet often in person. Promoting mere office presence without coordinated schedules is a completely false assumption. If you come in on Tuesday and your teammate comes in on Wednesday, your attendance looks high on paper, but your co-presence is literally zero. You're basically just drinking expensive downtown coffee all by yourself. Part 3. Navigating graduate career realities. Let's see how this builds, right? If there's a disconnect in the office itself, how does this impact the entry-level experience for someone brand new? This brings us to academic survey data from Ria-Jean T. Alibio and our colleagues, published in the Cognizance Journal. Their methodology involved comprehensively surveying young adult business administration graduates. They wanted to track their actual employment outcomes and see just how well their academic expectations aligned with their real-world careers. And the data breakdown is quite telling. The authors highlight that only about half, 50.29% to be exact, actually find work that is highly relevant to their degree. It's basically a coin toss. The rest are facing a significant gap between their academic training and the practical realities of the modern job market.
Their analysis reveals that while graduates are highly adaptable, they're stepping into a workforce where external factors and a lack of aligned opportunities force them to compromise on their initial career paths. Part 4. Redefining the psychological contract. So, that gap between what we expect and what we actually get bridges us perfectly to our fourth and fifth sources. These deal with the broader, implicit agreements we all make with our employers. To understand this, we rely on foundational theories referenced by researchers Smithson and Lewis. They define the psychological contract as an individual's beliefs about mutual obligations and implicit promises in the employer-employee relationship. It's not the actual PDF contract you sign for HR. It's the unspoken trust that if you work hard, the company will take care of you. It's the invisible glue holding your job together. Building on that exact foundation, we look at the incredible work of Dr. Adichie Jamil and Arash Mashadi from Grissy University. They conducted a scoping review, systematically analyzing existing literature to determine exactly how modern technology breaches these unspoken contracts. Their methodology was brilliantly designed to capture the complexity of the employee perspective in this rapidly digitizing age. The crucial takeaway here is how tech acts as a massive disruptor. Jamil and Mashadi demonstrate that as tech, things like AI and gig economy algorithms, mediates our work, our expectations are completely reshaped. Smartphones alter our basic work-life boundaries, and algorithms are increasingly replacing human managers. Because of this shift, the traditional relational contract, built on trust and loyalty, is rapidly being replaced by a cold transactional contract. You do the task, you get paid, but the loyalty, it's gone. After all, an algorithm isn't going to buy you a cake for your work anniversary, right? Finally, Part 5, the digital nomad economy. If the traditional psychological contract is broken, and remote flexibility is the new currency, what is the ultimate expression of this? For our final source, we turn to a comprehensive white paper from the Business Advisory Group on Migration, prepared in conjunction with Fragaman. This paper takes a serious deep dive into global digital nomad visas. It explores how governments and businesses around the world are frantically attempting to regulate and capture the value of this entirely new class of worker. Now, we often use these terms interchangeably, but the authors make a vital distinction, and this brilliantly illustrates the landscape. An in-country remote worker resides in the same country as their employer. They're just working from their local couch. But a true digital nomad resides in a totally different country from their employer, does not enter the local labor market, and provides no services to local businesses. They are purely geographic arbiters of their own talent. The authors then expand their scope to look at how this nomadic workforce impacts global ESG frameworks. That's environmental, social, and governance. Environmentally, you have the massive carbon footprint of frequent flights, weighed against the reduction in daily commuting. Socially, nomads boost local economies by spending foreign capital, but they also risk causing intense local gentrification and pricing out the actual residents. And from a governance perspective, they create absolute headaches around tax compliance and visa regulations for their employers. It's a wildly complex web. Which brings us right to the end of our research tour. I want to leave you with one incredibly provocative thought to summarize everything we've synthesized today. As the psychological contract completely evolves from the physical office to the digital globe, and as true co-presence struggles to replace mere attendance, what will corporate loyalty even mean tomorrow? The rules of employment have undeniably been rewritten. I really hope this explainer has given you the structured insights you need to navigate this wild new reality. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you on the next deep dive.